Good evening. My name is Rob Elkins. I'm a graduate student at Bellevue University in its International Security and Intelligence Studies program. So, both in Colombia and in Mexico, drug use is not the only problem arising out of the drug trade. Violence resulting from drug trafficking has drastically affected the socio-economic structures in both countries. Two major causative agents of drug trafficking violence are paramilitary forces within Colombia and urban warfare within Mexico. Colombian paramilitary forces have had a debilitating effect on the social and economic status of middle and lower class citizens, but have had a boosting effect on upper classes that deal with foreign companies and investment. During the last 30-year period, drug trafficking and violence resulted in approximately 400,000 deaths and over 4 million displaced Colombians. For many years, foreign investment in Colombia has suffered as a result of the drug trade. But due in large part to paramilitary forces helping the Colombian military root out drug cartels and leftist guerrilla organizations, the rule of law in Colombia was reestablished, or at least enough to entice foreign companies to once again become interested within Colombia. In 2000, when the joint U.S.-Colombia anti-drug plan known as Plan Colombia was initiated, Colombia's foreign direct investment figure stood at only $2.4 billion. But by 2011, that figure had risen to $14.4 billion. However, as part of this successful rise in foreign investment, there was a reciprocal negative effect taking place on domestic middle-class businesses and the lower-class working force. Paramilitaries started forcing middle-class business owners out of business and started forcing citizens to either work at rock bottom wages in poor working conditions or be forced to leave the country. Paramilitaries also aggressively attacked those who tried to establish workers' unions. This low-class working force with minimal pay, squalid working conditions, and no legal representation actually worked to the advantage of these foreign companies, as these companies could easily take over vacated territories on which to build factories and plants with cheap labor and services. For many lower-class citizens in Colombia, the end result has been economic poverty, human rights violations, displacement, and even death. In the meantime, foreign investment has gone up. The logical action to be taken in Colombia today, to me, seems to be the removal of paramilitary organizations. The use of military action, to me, is advisable since it's doubtful that these paramilitary organizations will even give up their position. Why would they? Part of this military action should involve the recruitment of many of these displaced and oppressed citizens. Using these citizens not only helps them economically by having higher raises in their wage earning capacity, but it also allows many of them to come home once again after many years being displaced, and may even give some of them who are displaced a sense of nationalism once again. Where once military action was used to root out drug cartels and guerrillas, it is now time for the same military to be used to the benefit for the common citizen. By eradicating paramilitaries, it allows for domestic business owners to thrive, but it also helps eliminate poverty, human rights violations, further displacement, and even more death. Mexico's violence problems are much the same as Colombia's. But where Colombia has paramilitary problems, Mexico has urban warfare problems. And not only problems between rival drug organizations, but maybe even more so between drug organizations and government military and police forces. Drug trade-induced violence in Mexico has resulted in over 220,000 deaths in the last 30 years. Unfortunately, a great many of these deaths have been caused by open warfare between government forces and drug forces. Additionally, domestic businesses throughout the country have had to close their businesses due to the ever-present danger of violence in the street. From a social perspective, because criminals often overran what the legal authorities could handle, Citizens also had to endure becoming victims to robberies, extortion, and kidnapping. The joint U.S.-Mexican anti-drug plan for Mexico, called the Merida Initiative, focused more on the application of hardware and technology to overcome drug trafficking rather than correcting for socioeconomic problems within Mexico. All that really resulted was bloodshed, ruined domestic businesses, and displaced Mexican citizens. Like Colombia, Mexico has also seen a resurgent foreign investment. But also like Colombia, while foreign money has grown, domestic welfare has substantially declined. Foreign investment by itself is not enough to overcome the many socioeconomic problems within Mexico. The only way to bring this brand of violence to a halt is to take this warfare off the urban streets and back to the doorstep of the drug organizations. Mexico's new president, Enrique Peña Nieto, is talking about adding specialized forces to deal with organized violence. However, what he is talking about actually sounds a lot like paramilitary forces. If there is a lesson that he can learn from Colombia, it is that the Mexican National Gendarmerie, which is what he is looking at using, must do only that which it is intended for, and not let them noose like the paramilitaries in Colombia. It is possible that these forces can, along with the paramilitary and police, put a stop to drug violence. But one thing is for certain: there must be a preventive aspect to this warfare, where the citizens are kept safe while eradication of drug organizations is taking place. If Colombia and Mexico are to recover from the drug trade, it is just as important for domestic socio-economic rebuilding to take place as it is for maintaining foreign investment. Only by removing obstacles such as paramilitaries and urban violence will socio-economic structures become strong once again. Thank you.